What's up, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, whoever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, man, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod. My YouTube is at March 4th Pod. My website is march4th.podbean.com. The link tree with all of my stuff is in the podcast description for this episode. So that means if you made it here, you found us somehow, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you checking out another edition out of March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. As you're hearing this, it is officially the final week of 2023. I hope that this year has been a really good one for you. And if not, I hope that you are already on your way to visualizing a better 2024, whether that's a better version of yourself, whether that is goals that you have, things about yourself you want to change for the better, a new business idea that you have, getting in better shape mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is, man. I hope that everybody is really looking forward to a brand new year. I know that I am. When I look at 2023 and I look at where I am at the end of this year compared to the beginning of the year, and where I look at where my life is even now compared to where it was 3 years ago, man, it's kind of a trip. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm an introspective cat, and I have a tendency to reflect. Some would say overthinking, and some would be correct, but there are times where it's good to reflect, man. And when I look at the past 3 years of my life and the amount of change that's occurred, it's kind of wild, man. I think there's been more changes in my life since 2020 than any other 3 or 4 year increment in my life over my 35 years, man. And I'm not saying that like, oh, woe is me, play the world's smallest violin for myself. I'm just being real here. Like I said, I'm a bit introspective and it's the end of the year. So bear with me. Um, but I say that to say, one thing that I've really discovered in my 35 years, and not that I'm gonna like wax poetic here because I still have got a lot to learn, but um the only constant really is change, man. But I say all that to say it's been a pretty solid year for the podcast, and on an individual level, I'm just really grateful for the circle that I have. So for those of you listening, you know who you are, who have stuck by my side over these past couple of years, and I know it's been a weird few years for everybody with the pandemic and everything. Thank you. You know who you are, and I love you very much. And thank you to all of you who listen to this podcast, man. People who tell their friends about it, people who like and subscribe and share, people who really believe in that message that I'm trying to spread of March 4th, persevere, move forward, overcome. You have the power within you to do great things. And we're all stronger than we think. And lead with love, be good to people. That's very much my message on here, and it's cool to see it grow incrementally over the past couple of years. And I've not really done a whole lot, partially out of fear, I can admit, to make it bigger. And that's kind of one of my New Year's resolutions to go into 24 is to put more time in to help this thing grow, and understand that I don't need to be afraid to water this garden because it's part of me. Excuse me. I went to school for communication and journalism, and did that work when I was younger, as many of you know. And I love music, and even that's the great thing about this show is it goes beyond music, and from colleagues and business owners and friends of mine and stuff. Like, I really try to mix it up on here to give you guys conversations about people who are persevering and overcoming and moving forward in their lives, just to show you that you have the ability to do that too. So life is what we make it, and some people are dealt a better hand than others, but at the end of the day, it's how you play that hand, right? So I really hope that you guys, if you are introspective or a little overthinky like me, it's okay. It's a good time of the year to reflect, and if you didn't have a good year, to hit the reset button. We all get that opportunity here, going into 2024, man. You don't have to wait till January 1st to start making those changes. You can start doing it now. And I just hope that all of you know that you're loved and you're worthy and you're worth it. And it's okay to be a little scared of your dreams, because if they didn't scare you, they wouldn't be big enough. And I'm not the first person to say that, but I'm old enough now and wise enough now with the things that I've gone through, both good and bad, especially these past 3+ years, that I feel like I can say that and understand it, and it doesn't sound cheesy. So I hope that everybody has a great start to 2024. A happy new year. I hope that everybody's had a great holiday season. And speaking of people who are doing big things and people who are overcoming and people who are affecting the world in a positive way, this week's guest is it's just such an awesome way to close out 2023. She is a very talented singer, and she's somebody who cares a lot about mental health. She is none other than Zhaklina Spencer. She is a singer based here in Nashville, and in addition to that, she is also the founder of Mental Health Songwriter Nights in Nashville. And what they do with that is, they bring a group of artists together, as you'll hear in the conversation. I won't spoil it too much, but they bring a group of artists together, and not only do the artists get paid, but they also donate proceeds to various mental health foundations. And as you guys will hear on this podcast, you'll hear Jacquelina's story about why this is so important to her, how it's part of who she is, but not only who she is, but also her music, and how she's really using her voice quite literally and figuratively to inspire positive change, and translating, and channeling that darkness, excuse me, into light with Mental Health Songwriter Nights. And, I'm really excited to be able to get her on the podcast and share her story with you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Zhaklina Spencer. Here it is. Well, Jacquelina, thank you so much for taking the time to do the podcast. I was really happy that we connected, just learning more about you and Mental Health Songwriters Nights in Nashville, and learning more about you as a singer. So, and again, I had no idea your hubby was in Holloway, so this is really awesome, and I'm happy to get you on here. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I feel honored to be speaking with you today.
Well, thank you, and likewise. So the first place I wanted to start with you, just because we have this shared love for music and mental health. And it was cool checking out your songs, and you've got some with your hubby as well. And I want to get into this a little bit too, as well, about how you guys met, because I think it's really cool that, that you're married to somebody that shares that love for music. That's always cool when you have stuff in common, but especially something like music. I digress. But when did you start singing, or what was the bug that bit you with music? Has it been there since you were a little kid?
Yeah, so if my mom and dad were here, they would tell you I was singing before I could talk. I My dad would be like, "Yeah, you were really into rock music," and my mom was just like, "You just really like to sing." I have the earliest picture or like visual that I've found of me with a microphone in my hand was when I was 3 years old. And I was just probably just being like, twinkle, twinkle, just singing that, but yeah, I've been singing my whole life. And I would have to say like my first recollection of a musical inspiration was Celine Dion. So I was like probably 5 years old when I watched the Titanic for the first time. And like the whole thing shook me as a youngin. But, but it was the song at the end that like took me over. And then I just something about it, like I just felt like I wanted to sing like Celine Dion. And so I we lived in this one bedroom apartment, my sister, mom, and I, in the Bronx. And I would just blast that song over and over and over and over again, just belting my face off, trying to hit those notes. And that was the start of me wanting to be a singer. And like, I think that's what took it from like really enjoying singing and like having this innate like desire to express myself that way, to like, I want to do something with this. I want to work hard towards being able to sing in a certain way. That's like my first memory of that. But yeah.
It's really awesome. That was definitely a powerful movie when it came out. I think one of my brothers and my mom went to see that in the theaters, and I didn't go. So I saw it on video. For the younger people listening, VHS. No, never mind. I won't get into that. But yeah, I saw it on video. Uh, but yeah, that song was everywhere, man. And Celine, yeah, she definitely has the pipes, man. That's to say the least. I mean, she was hitting the high notes on that one. So then did it just continue to go from there and build on it? Like did you start taking voice lessons, or was it just sort of a natural progression of continuing to sing?
um so for a while it was a natural progression. I was like the only musical kid in my family. Like my sister liked to sing, but she wasn't really like invested in it the way I was. And the rest of like my cousins and my brother were not really like into music. Like I just was like this sore thumb. So I was constantly like learning songs and then like wanting to perform them for my family. So like I just like have all these memories growing up, like getting my family together in the living room, like, all right, listen to me sing this song. Um, and like constantly putting on a show. Like I was a little performer all the time, putting shows together ever since I was little. And then even just like going to the park to like hang out with my friends, I would always be like, all right, guys, we should have like a talent show. And like everybody expresses their different talents, and mine was always singing, always. Um, and then I would say middle school, I had my first solo performance for like people other than like my neighborhood friends and family and cousins. And I was super, super nervous, and like half the song was in German. Um, which was really interesting. And I butchered it. I forgot, like I was so nervous that I forgot the lyrics, and I just remember like being frozen, and then like my choir director like mouthing the lyrics to me, like and then I finally started singing again, and it started to come back to me, but I was so sad that I butchered my first opportunity. um and after that, I mean, I continued being in choirs afterwards. I didn't like lose my passion for music, obviously. Um, then I would just say like throughout middle school, I started being a part of more serious music and singing groups. Um, things that like had goals and like shows. I did Bye Bye Birdie in eighth grade. I did a talent show singing an Evanescence song, Bring Me to Life, which Evanescence is probably my second biggest inspiration. Probably my first overall, but like second in terms of like chronological order. Um,
Shout out Amy Lee.
yes, I love Amy Lee. And then I also started writing my own music around like fifth, sixth grade. Um, I had an aunt that she wasn't like an aunt by blood, she was an aunt by marriage, and she also liked to sing, and she saw that I was really passionate about it, and she bought me my first songwriting journal, which was really cool. And it's also super embarrassing going back and looking at those songs. Like one of my first songs that I wrote, I don't even know what I was trying to like write about, but the lyrics are like, whoa, you hit me like a crazy ball. Ouch, that hurt. Wow, really good. Um,
Stop it. I think you should bring it back.
yeah, and then high school is where things got super intense. So I joined competitive choirs. I was in a women's choir. I was in madrigals, and I did all state as well. And these were things that like I had to like audition to be in. Um, I did some voice lessons. They weren't super consistent. It was mostly like whenever I was struggling to figure something out on my own and I needed the extra support, I would go. Um, and my mom used to give me lunch money every week for food because I had to like buy food in school. And sometimes I would like skip buying food and save my money so I could go and like pay for a voice lesson for myself. And my mom found out and she got really mad at me. Um, but I was so passionate about it. And I did a lot of musical theater. So I'm super theatrical um, in high school. And that also helped me sharpen my skills and grow as a performer. Um, in college, I continued pursuing music. Um, and doing like different shows. I joined a competitive a cappella group called Faux Pas, very, very good at University of Maryland in College Park. Um, and after that, that's probably around the time I started pursuing being an independent singer-songwriter once I graduated college. I won this competition that my brother told me um I needed to partake in. And I don't know, like I'm like I probably would be here if I didn't do it at some point, but like that was what triggered it for me. I won this huge competition in New York with a radio station called K104.7, played at this huge music festival called K Fest, met a lot of record execs, met a lot of famous people, and they all gave me a lot of really great feedback on my music and my vocals, and that really like launched me into the trajectory that I have now been on for 8 years.
It's awesome.
I've been for a really, really long time. I've always loved English was like my favorite, one of my favorite subjects in school. I loved poetry. I loved writing stories. And then that all just continued to evolve into songs. And as I grew and gained a lot more life experience, like all of my writing also evolved too. Um, and yeah, so yeah, it's just been this really natural evolution for me. I've always had the passion and I would say gifts of like singing and writing since like I could remember. I've just always loved both. Um, but it's taken this like form of like nature and nurture to get to where I'm at now. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for taking me and the listeners through how you got to where you are today. Um, and that's pretty awesome, especially in New York. So, did you grow up there before you went to college in Maryland, or did you spend your whole life in NYC?
So I was born in New York. I was born in the Hudson Valley.
Okay.
Um, and my parents split when I was two. My dad stayed in the Hudson Valley, and my sister and I moved down to the Bronx. And we lived in this building on Pelham Parkway with my grandparents and an uncle, and like it was like half our family was in that building. We're Albanian Montenegrin, so we have like our like family is like very, very, very close in terms of like our culture. Um, and then when I was about 11, I think 10 or 11, we moved to California for a year. And then we moved to Maryland. I was in 7th grade. And then I stayed in Maryland for the rest of middle school, high school, graduated college there. I was there for maybe I think a year or two after I graduated college. Then I moved back up to New York and I lived with my dad, and that was like this combination of like, hey, I am a young adult. I am trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I need to save money. And I had no recollection of living with my dad. So ever since like I could remember, I only like remembered spending time with my dad when like, he would pick us up on the weekends when we lived in New York, or like we would go visit him for holidays when we moved away because my mom had custody. So I wanted this experience living with my dad before I like officially moved out as an adult to lead my own life and get married one day and all these things. So I lived with him for about a year, and I worked like three different jobs. I That's also the year, it was 2016 into 2017, that I really like honed in on what kind of artist I am, and um what messages that I wanted to share through my music, the kind of branding, like all of that I really crafted in that year. And that was a lot of work and a lot of pain. Saved a lot of money, went on a 2-month road trip around the country to figure out where I was going to relocate. I was really torn between Washington State, Colorado, and then Nashville. And I ended up coming here in early 2018, right after we rang in the new year. And I've been here since.
Nice. Yeah, you came here right in the middle of it starting to boom then. I got here and I was just 8 years in October. My first I drove down on October 30th, and then my first full day as a Nashvilleian, ironically, was Halloween. So it's kind of a cool anniversary, especially since I love like horror movies and stuff too. But
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
that 2015 was when Nashville just started to start popping. I feel like the Gulch too. I work in the Gulch, and that
Mm.
area, I remember my boss driving me through there, and he was like, a few years ago, none of this was here, so it's been wild to see it grow. I kind of miss old Nashville prices, but we won't get into the real estate market here locally on this one. But that's cool that you made your way here to the Music City, because I've not been to Washington State. Two of my best friends, shout out Dominic and Nicole, I love you guys. They moved to Portland, so pretty close. They're in Oregon, and it's beautiful out there. The stuff that they post is just gorgeous. And I think I was always drawn to it since I was a kid, because two of my favorite movies of all time are Stand By Me and The Goonies, and they were both like filmed out there. The Goonies was Astoria, Oregon, I believe, and Stand By Me was parts of the Northwest. I digress. And I've never been there. I can't wait to go visit those guys. And then Colorado, I went to with my ex 4 years ago, and it was awesome. I always wanted to go out there because the part of Ohio I'm from is really flat. So it's like, even when I came to Nashville, I'm like, oh my God, the hills. Like I was blown away by like the hills here. So but I'm glad that I ended up in Tennessee. But that's cool. Yeah, you got to Nashville right in the middle, I feel like, of everything starting to really grow a lot here. Which there's good and bad that comes with that, right? I think what's cool about it is there's a lot of people here chasing their dreams, and there's a lot of creativity here. There's a lot of people who are artistic, certainly more than where I'm from in Ohio anyway. Not to knock my hometown, but it's not a creative hub, and it's cool
Yeah.
to be here. Like we were talking about before the jump, like when I saw Hollow Wake at that festival in August, and going back and forth between the exit in and the end, and seeing all these different bands, and seeing the bands all supporting each other. That's really cool. But winning that contest in New York, I wanted to touch on that. You mentioned, rubbing elbows with a lot of people in the industry. Were there any in particular, and you don't have to name names if you don't want to, but were there any in particular as far as advice, or just a good vibe that stood out, that kind of lifted your spirits even more than just winning the competition, and really gave you the confidence, like, yes, this is I won this thing, but these words really helped me, or this interaction really helped me.
Um, I would actually say there was a record label, Warner Brothers, executive that just had incredible things to say to me. And he was really encouraging, and gave me really good advice, and just told me that like I needed, if I wanted to take this seriously, to just keep going no matter what. And that really impacted me, and that's something that like I feel like I'm never gonna forget.
That's cool. I feel like we all have those people that even if you are a confident person and you believe in yourself, there's always somebody that, whether you want to call it the universe or God, like I feel like that comes through in different waves and in different ways with different people. And there's always people that kind of give you that nudge of like either reassuring you that the path that you're on is good or redirecting your path to like this is what you should be doing. Um, so that's really cool. So how far into Nashville? Because I know, was it 2017 you had an EP, right? Was that before, if my Spotify knowledge is serving me right, when
Yeah.
I was putting out your music. So that was right before you moved here that you did that?
I had an EP called Warrior that I released in 2016. And then in 2017, it was taken down because I changed my credit card through my music distribution company and forgot to put the new one.
Oh,
And like so when they'd like take out an annual fee to keep your music out there. And so when that came around, I hadn't uploaded it. I hadn't had my new card on there, so my music was taken down. Um and I was trying to figure out like, okay, so my music was taken down. I'm gonna need to put it back up, but I've been trying to figure out how to put it back out in a way that kind of suits the branding that I now have, because the first EP that I released was just kind of like songs that don't they're each individually, I think, pretty good songs, but they sound like four different genres. And it's this like hodgepodge of like music that I created, and I just was really excited to have this first release. So I've gone back and forth with like, okay, is there a way for me to redistribute this that like fits my branding, or should I just put it out and be like, yep, look at all my growth? um I've gone back and forth, and I've had different advice given to me about how to go about that. But my first EP that's out, that's like that you can actually listen to and is still out there, and I will continue to pay for to stay out, is part of my 17 Reasons Why series, and that was actually released in January 2019. I started writing it in 2017, started working on producing it in 2017, all the way up to the end of 2018, and released it in January 2019. And that's the first like project that I would say um that's like officially out there, that's like a part of like who I am as an artist and my branding. Where before it was like I was writing songs and just wanted to put something out there under my name that I thought was really good.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, because some of my faves from listening to your work was Live Loved. That's an awesome one.
Thank
You
you.
Have My Mind probably is my favorite. You go to like another level on that one. That's like crazy. Your range on that one is pretty awesome. I think the latest one is Game Over. That was the one where you did with Hollow Wake, and you guys
Yeah.
did a music video where you had like the life-size chess pieces and like there was like that dinner or like meal setting thing. That was cool. I want to touch on that too. That was a lot of cool stuff going on in that video. And then
Thank
God Queen you did with Bobby, and that music video is cool. There was it you or somebody else that was it somebody else doing like the interpretive dance throughout the video?
Yeah, so I did like there was in one part where her and I were mirroring each other. And that I was also in it, but she was the dancer that we hired to like interpret that role in the video.
Yeah, that was cool, man. But those were the ones that stuck out when I started checking out your musical catalog. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that you've had the courage to just go after your gift. I think that's definitely something that I've struggled with, and I think a lot of people struggle with is just and it's kind of a good segue into mental health, which I know means a lot to you, and a big reason, the central reason why we're doing the show. And thank you again so much for the time, Jacqueline. This is awesome. But I think for a lot of people, for a lot of us, it's getting out of our own way. We
Mm,
all have intrusive thoughts. I struggle with those as well. And not going down the rabbit hole with those. And, because the mind's a powerful thing, good or bad. We can convince ourselves of a lot of stuff. and I admire people who have like that irrational confidence because I'm like, man, I want that. Um, but for me, it's always been a struggle like the other way and getting out of my own way and having the confidence to even do stuff like this. Um, I've always been kind of like an extroverted introvert, and I prefer more individual interactions or small groups of people. And like when I was a kid, I've always had anxiety since I was a kid, and I don't know really where it comes from. I mean, there's worriers in my family. Um, there's definitely my parents have varying degrees of anxiety and worry, but I try not to look at it as like a source of blame. You know what I mean? It's like if you have it, you just have it. Um, I digress, but when I was a kid, I didn't really know what it was. So I would just avoid things. School dances were terrifying. You know what I mean? Big social settings were terrifying. So there's a lot of stuff that I avoided. And then the older that you get, the more you realize your comfort zone is actually kind of like the worst thing because you limit yourself. And as long as you stay in that little box and don't try to get out of it, like it can kind of reinforce those fears the more you avoid them. And so it's only really as I've kind of gone through adulthood and, I came to Nashville not really knowing anybody, fell in love, got my heart broken. Not saying that for sympathy for you or any of the listeners. It happens to the best of us. And then experienced more death than I'd ever experienced in 2021 in the wake of that breakup. And it really kind of put me in this shell. And like that combined with COVID, and even though I like my alone time as like an introvert, that forced being alone is a lot different, and I think it just brought out a lot of stuff. So that's a long way of me saying like I'm finally at a place I feel like in my mid 30s where I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I feel like I'm on the path of doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and this podcast is something selfishly that I do because I love to do it, but at the same time it's something that I want to leave behind. And the theme of the show, I hope it really connects with people, so it's been cool to see it grow. But we're not here to talk about me. I'm only saying all of that to relate to you because I know mental health is big for you as well, and we touched on it a little bit before we even hit record. And obviously you're doing the Mental Health Songwriter Nights, but um and you can go as deep or as shallow as you want to, Jacqueline, because I don't want to like make you uncomfortable. But for you, in
Mm.
addition to your journey as a singer and as an artist, what has that mental health journey been like to you, and how did it lead to starting the Mental Health Songwriter Nights in Nashville?
Okay. Thank you for sharing everything that you did. Your story is really beautiful.
Hey,
So
I'm always worried I rant too much, but thank you.
you're fine. I'm a feelings person. I've been in therapy consistently because I've been in it before, but it wasn't consistent, but consistently, for over 3.5 years now. And it's been life changing for me. So I have always been really sensitive, never knew what to call it, never, you know, felt like I had the space to explore my sensitivity, never felt accepted for it, was shamed constantly growing up. I definitely grew up in a family that would just constantly tell me I was too sensitive to like stop crying and basically like be tough. And it's just like, um, I always like felt like there was something wrong with me because I'm like, I am strong. Like I want to be strong. I want to persevere. I want to have resilience. But like it seems like God didn't make me that way. And like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I be strong? And my therapist helped me break free from that. And she's like, "Who told you you're not strong?" And I'm like, "Well, how can I be when I'm so sensitive?" And she's like, um, so basically, she's helped me name a lot of things that I needed help naming when I was younger. So I'm a highly sensitive personality, HSP, which is not a disorder, it's just a personality type. I'm a personality nerd, so I'm about to get a little nerdy and deep with you. Um, on the Enneagram, I'm a 4, wing 3, which is the individualist slash romantic. We're super sensitive. And then the 3 is like the performer slash achiever. Um, and I like, as I've like grown up and tried to understand the way I was wired, I've also grown in understanding like, wait a minute, you're strong by going like through things and being willing to face them and being willing to be honest with what comes up. Because if you don't and you just try to like, just tough it out and brush things under the rug and act like things don't matter when they really do, you just end up becoming this like hard shell. And then like you feel empty inside because you haven't nurtured all of the emotions, like the God-given emotions that you've been given. And I think that that's been the key on my mental health journey to reclaiming my sensitivity as something that is powerful and strong, not weak. Is that feelings are not bad, nor are they good. Like they are tools, and as they come up, we are designed to be able to feel them because they're telling us something, and then we draw in our reasoning and we figure out, okay, like, why am I feeling this? What am I supposed to do with this? As kids growing up, we're supposed to have like parents come alongside us, guide us, teach us how to do that, not shame us for the way that we express our feelings. And I don't know about you, but my parents were not very good at that. So I would say like I had a really hard upbringing, and not just with that, I experienced a lot of trauma. I was diagnosed in the last few years with complex PTSD, CPTSD, um, and I've just experienced physical trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, like all the abuse you can name. I've experienced it. I've witnessed a lot of it. A lot of really awful things happened. Some things that I saw, some things that I had a feeling were going on in with my family, but nobody wanted to talk about it. And then things that I learned about now as an adult that some other family members are coming out of the woodworks being like, hey, by the way, this is what happened. And I'm like, cool, that makes sense. Putting all the puzzle pieces together. But life for me has been incredibly complex. I mean, my parents split when I was 2. My dad was born here in America. He was brought up in a Catholic family. And then my mom was an immigrant from Montenegro, brought up in a Muslim family. So there was a lot of division just ever since I was little, constantly like being torn apart just from the get-go. Um, and I never really felt safe. I never felt like I was accepted. I never really felt like there was room for me. I always felt like I was a burden, that my feelings were too much, and that asking for anything was me being needy. And that was something that it took a while for me to like grow in and be able to like accept that, like, wait, we're designed to have needs and I'm not being needy. Um, so as I continue to like dive deeper into my past, and then also like, you know, we still have things coming up as we're healing because we continue to live our lives and we'll have issues come up in the future. I've grown in accepting myself and realizing that like the problem isn't like the way that you are wired and who you are. And the only way to grow and heal is through compassion, which my therapist also taught me that. My therapist is amazing. And so there's this book that I need to like shout out because it has inspired so much growth in me and a lot of my music that I've been writing. And it's about spiritual boundaries. It's called Boundaries of the Soul. By hold on, let me look it up really quick. So because I don't wanna mess this up, and it's important. Um it is Boundaries for Your Soul by Dr. Allison Cook. So and it goes into like all the different parts of our soul and how like there isn't a bad part, and the issues that come up and all of the like, you know, unresolved trauma that we experience is when we're not willing to like normalize and sit with those hard parts of ourselves. For instance, like take people pleasing as an example, and that's something that I've struggled with and I still face and it still comes up. Like I was taught that I need to be passive, don't be confrontational, like keep your mouth shut. um, don't talk too loud, don't talk too much. Just a lot of rules around how to be. And you know, as an adult, like you need to be able to be assertive and you need to be able to communicate your boundaries. And I think that I just like hushed a lot of that down. And when it would come up that I needed to say something, I felt like I was being a bad person. But the reality is, like, you're not. And you can actually end up being a people pleaser, too passive, which ends up leading to a lot of other issues because you're denying a part of yourself that's really important. So, this book teaches you to like sit with all the different parts that come up, befriend them. You don't let any single one take the lead. It's like you kind of set yourself apart from them and you sit with them like you would like a little toddler who's working through anger and frustration because their little sister stole their favorite toy, and or sadness. And it's like, how would you sit with them? Are you going to yell at them and tell them like they're not allowed to be angry? Or are you going to be like, it's okay to be angry, like I get angry too, let's talk about it and normalize it and work through it. And so I'm basically like reparenting a lot of parts of myself, and that's helped me heal and grow. And when it comes to like how this is impacting my music, there's another book that I read. I'm a big book reader, that also inspired me, and it draws Jesus into it a lot too. I'm a Christian, so my faith is a really big part of everything that I do. And in this book, it talks about living from a place of knowing that you are always loved, and that love for me, like the source, comes from God, because I'd like to like think that I'm unconditionally loving myself, but again, I don't know about you, but I don't always feel like I love myself. Sometimes I feel like I hate myself. Sometimes I'm really frustrated with myself. So I'm like, how do I keep making the same mistake over and over and over again? This is so frustrating. Like I feel like I've worked on this. um, but like the only one that like loves me unconditionally, that isn't going to like, you know, hold anything against me, is God. And when I like sit with that, it's like I'm just overwhelmed with this deep compassion for myself that I can't find unless I align with that like energy and that spirit. And it's from there that I heal. It's from there that I grow in confidence. It's from that space that I'm able to create beautiful artwork that inspires others to do the same. And so I have implemented this like logo, or not logo, slogan, um, essentially through my music, and it's to live loved, which you listen to one of my songs that like is titled Live Loved. And I feel like that is like the simplest way that I can communicate mental health, living from a healthy place. It's like when you live from a place of knowing that you are always loved, like that is like the best space to live from. And so everything that I write, all of my branding, everything I put out is like communicated from that authentic space within me, with the hope that I'm going to inspire that in other people. And you know, I've had a lot of not a lot. I've had some pushback when I put out songs that people don't expect me to put out, like You Can't Have My Mind. And there's another one I put out called Terrible Liar. And there's just some that get a little angsty, and they're like, you know, you promote like these messages about like love and faith. And I'm like, continue. Yeah, yeah, I do. So like this just seemed like, you know, just, you okay? But I'm like, oh, you mean I'm human? Like, that's the entire point. I'm like, I'm really glad you noticed. I'm like what I'm doing is working. Like the entire point in the music that I release is to actually normalize the paradox of emotions and experiences, of what it really means to be a healthy human being, because mental health, well-being, all of that doesn't just mean being positive all the time, being happy all the time. Like we have those other emotions for a reason, and I'm going to continue like sharing that message. Um and I hope that it helps you on your journey, and if it doesn't, so sorry. But this is my story. And so, you know, that's kind of how my mental health journey evolved, a little bit of my backstory. Um, I also struggle with OCT, obsessive compulsive thinking, which like is essentially a ton of ruminating. And um, I think a big part of that just has to do with trying, like I just remember for the first like year of me being in therapy, like I would just tend to end my sessions like asking my therapist, "Do you think I'm a good person?" Like constantly, like, "Do you think I'm a good person?" Like, I feel like I'm not a good person, and ruminating on every single mistake I made, which makes me this perfectionist. And I'm not perfect, like, whatsoever, but in my brain, I'm constantly trying to be like good all the time. And it turns me into like this obsessive compulsive thinker. I like, you know, ruminate on like conversations I've had, and I'm like, man, I wish I didn't say that. Like they're gonna hate me or whatever. And I don't give myself grace and room to be human. So I'm working on that in therapy. And it doesn't like, I think that being a lot of times people will take like, oh, like I'm just human, and then like slap that on as an excuse to like continue to hurt people. And it's like, no, like that's kind of part of the like tension here is like you need to be able to experience like being human in compassion and grace while you are reflecting on mistakes and things that you can grow in, and choosing to grow through that. Otherwise you kind of just stay stuck. Um so like that's like a balance that I feel like every human being works on, in their own like personal, very personal ways. Um so yeah, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I appreciate you sharing all that, Jacqueline, and I can relate, man. Like I have really good parents. Mine divorced when I was 11. Um, and it's not until really, like I said, that I became an adult that I, realized how much. And I had a great childhood, you know what I mean? But and they were really good to us. But I also had that element of, feeling like or being made to feel like, not necessarily from my parents, but like, hey, you just kind of rub some dirt on it, you know, um, emotions, especially as a dude. It's like, there's part of that I think a lot of dudes can relate to, as far as feeling like, hey, you got to be a robot. And again, I'm not trying to make this about me, but just relating to what you said, that it stuck out to me from your childhood about having like, hey, there's a certain way you have to be, you know, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, being made to feel like, hey, this is kind of the box that you have to be put in. And I also relate to the ruminating, man. Like I feel like I'm like um the king of ruminating in a lot of ways, man. Where it's just like, yeah, you have these thought loops that just play in your head, and that's where I realized I needed help. Was like, I can't, they were becoming, you know, I'm trying to think of the right word to say. They were intruding on my day-to-day life, and getting in the way of, just functioning in a healthier way. So I'm glad that you're at a place where you've been able to, you know, be able to get properly diagnosed, and that you're talking to a therapist that you trust, that can help you work through these things and be able to express your emotions. Um, that sucks that you got negative feedback about the more angsty songs, because as a heavy music fan, it's like I always tell people that, and not even that those songs are like heavy. I mean, you're not doing like hardcore vocals, you know what I mean? But like those though, like heavy music has always been a positive release of negative emotion for me, and that's how I describe it to people. Um, I'm sure Bobby can probably relate to that too, because he has the pipes. He can sing, but he can also do those heavier vocals. You're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. Um, and it's just a healthy expression to get that stuff out. And like you said, I think that's an important thing you touched on is, we're human, man. Like, even if you're a positive person, that doesn't mean that you're going to be positive all the time. And I'm interested to check out that book you mentioned, and I hope the listeners do too, about the different parts of your soul, because I really believe, I mean, I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I was raised Catholic. There's certain things from my upbringing that I like about that. I'm no longer a practicing Catholic. I started going to a non-denominational church down here and met some good people through that. And um, I'm not in touch with them as much anymore, which is partially on me, but I digress. But that church I felt like was more kind of come as you are, more what I kind of think God would be like or Jesus would be like if they were walking the earth right now, where it's not so much about how you dress and how you look and stand up, sit down, obey, guilt. There's a lot of guilt in Catholicism, and don't send me hate male Catholic people, because if it works for you, that's great. But there was just parts of that I kind of separated with. I digress. But a long way of me saying in response to everything that you said that, one, thank you for sharing it. Because you didn't have to. And I know it's, talking about these things though is important, and that's why I do this show, because I feel like there's a lot of people who were either made to feel like when they were younger too, they couldn't express their emotions, especially if they were negative, or they struggled with things and they didn't know why. Like I remember the first panic attack I had, it was terrifying,
Oh my god.
and people who never figure that out. So they either avoid those things. Like my first one was in a restaurant when I was a kid. So then I didn't like to like go out to eat. And then there'd be people that were like, "What's up with Mike?" Because like if I did go out, I wouldn't eat, and they're like, "Dude, what's wrong?" And then that makes it worse because it's like I already feel like it, like an idiot because I have this, and when you reinforce me being a weirdo, like, or making me feel like a weirdo because I have this, it just amplifies it. It's like putting gasoline on a fire. So anyway,
Uh,
it's a long
yeah.
response to what you said, but I appreciate you sharing your mental health journey, Jacqueline, and I'm glad that you're at a place where, one, that you're talking about it, but two, that you're helping other people. Because it's important. I really feel like I was telling this to one of my best friends the other day. I think there's a lot of people who would still be here. There's a lot of relationships that would still exist and exist healthily if people would just talk to each other and knew how to express themselves. So I
Yeah.
appreciate.
Aw. I have like tears in my eyes. So beautiful. Um, Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm gonna get a little emotional. Um, yeah, one of my biggest motivators, is my cousin who um passed away from suicide about a week before my first 17 Reasons Why EP came out. And it was this wild experience for me. And I don't like my whole family struggled and still does struggle with it. Like this is on my dad's side. And our family dynamic will never be the same. Um and I just remember like feelings like almost like I was in the twilight zone because I was releasing this music that so the number 17 mean to me on a spiritual level. I like have this relationship with this number, or basically I feel like God talks to me through this number. You can judge that if you want, but it to
Well,
me means you are where you're supposed to be. And I basically flipped it. Have you ever seen 13 Reasons Why on I think it was on Netflix a while ago. I don't know if it still is.
I've not watched it, mainly because I feel like I know it's going to be heavy, and so I'll get to it though, especially now that you're saying it to me. I feel like it's the universe's way of kind of telling me I need to watch it, but I digress.
So, okay. So I went through this awful, awful, awful breakup end of 2017, and I like need to cry to get through my feelings. I need to let it out. And so I like binged all of 13 Reasons Why in like a week, and I felt so much better, which is crazy. But I remember feeling super like, you know, um heartbroken over the story. And essentially this girl like communicated 13 different reasons why she felt like she needed to take her life, which, when someone takes their life, they don't feel like they belong here. They don't feel like they're supposed to be here. You know, so many different versions of, I feel like, the same story. And so part of my like live loved messages and all of that, like I decided to start this project called 17 Reasons Why, and I'm actually going to be releasing the final EP to the entire series this upcoming year, which is mind blowing. um but it's to flip the story, and it's to communicate, here's all these different reasons why you are where you're supposed to be. And it was just so crazy that a week before I released the first EP, my cousin dies. And it's through like exactly what I'm trying to like, I can't prevent it. I can't stop it. But like you said, like if I'm like, I constantly reflect back and I'm like, man, like I'm releasing this music to help people that, like, are going through exactly what he went through. And it just kind of like continues to fuel the fire for me when I remember what happened. Um and it allows me to persevere, and I just know that there's like people out there who need to know they're not alone the way they might. Um and that they are special, and that they bring beautiful, meaningful things to this world. And that if you feel really hard things, like there's nothing wrong with you for that. So yeah, like I definitely resonate with what you're doing. I've suffered from panic attacks that have kept me from a lot of things in my past, or just slowed things down, like getting my license. It took until I was like, I think, almost 22 years old, 21, 22 years old to get my license. Because I would have a panic attack. I had to renew my permit like 3 times. And it took me a really long time to get comfortable driving on the highway. I was like terrified of the highway, and I'd have to pull over often and do my deep breathing. Um, then I experienced a shooting when I worked in this mall, and that only made anxiety, PTSD, panic attacks worse. And I started going to the doctor a little too often, thinking I was having a heart attack, but I wasn't. It was panic attacks, which was this crazy experience. And you may have experienced that too, where you're like, oh my gosh, am I dying? Is this a heart attack? Like, it's really, really, really scary. And they do all of the testing, and it's like, nope, it's a panic attack, but it's so intense. And it's definitely messed with um a lot of like my hormones, and like I feel like I now have to do extra work and eat differently to like maintain a sort of balance, so that I don't constantly feel on edge and anxious because of a lot of like the anxiety and trauma that I've been through in my past. Like it all affects you. So yeah, thank you for doing what you do. I think it's awesome, and I'm so grateful that like our stories have aligned and crossed paths. So I think that this is really beautiful.
Well, thank you. I'm so sorry for your loss, genuinely. I appreciate you opening up about that. And yeah, I read that, suicide prevention is something that means a lot to you, and even the organizations that you've contributed some of the proceeds from your music to. So I figured there was a connection there, but obviously I you know I don't ever want to press people on traumatic things, but it is important to talk about this stuff. And I appreciate you sharing it, and that we arrived there organically in the conversation. And I'm really sorry for your loss, because I can't imagine what that's like. Um, death is hard, no matter when it comes, but especially with something like that. But I think the fact that you're carry on that legacy through your music, and um, you're doing the work that you're doing with Mental Health Songwriter Nights with Nashville. I know that they're proud of you and what you're doing without even knowing them. I know that light is shining brightly in what you're doing and the impact that you're making. And I told you I get you out of here at 7, and I feel like we could talk for a really long time, but
Probably.
I know that you got off of work and you're doing this on a Friday night, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I just wanted to say genuinely, I'm really sorry for your loss, but I think it's really awesome that you're turning that negative into a positive with your music and the Mental Health Songwriters Nights. I know that you've already raised in what a year and a half, March 2022, you guys started doing that, and it's already what over $3,400. That's really awesome. So yeah, I don't really know what to say, because I'm an empath, and I've lost people close to me, but I don't know what that's like, and I'm truly sorry, but I'm so happy, Jacqueline, that you have an outlet for your music, uh, that you got an awesome husband who I know is helping you with this stuff as well, and that you have a platform and a voice that's reaching people, and so um, without even knowing them, I know that they would be really proud of you, and they're still with you, so I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my mental health songwriter nights have been amazing. I launched them in March 2022. Um, and like singer-songwriter nights are pretty popular out here in Nashville, but I always found myself being like, again, like the oddball, because I was like talking about things that like were really different compared to like whatever other songwriters were talking about, and I always ended up like bringing up mental health, and there weren't a lot of other people when I would go out talking about mental health. Um, and they just like, they're like, oh, we got to keep our audience just like having fun and happy. And I'm like, where are the artists that like want to talk about this like really meaningful stuff? So I decided to launch these mental health songwriter nights to provide all the artists that um, do write about mental health and things that are really meaningful to them, a platform to be able to share that, and to also give back to our artist community. So we not only donate to mental health organizations, but we also give money to our artists that perform. So it's like a double-sided coin there. We support our communities, our artist communities, and then we also support mental health through donating a portion of our proceeds, and also providing a bunch of like donation opportunities and really fun raffles at our events. I have had so much fun with these raffles. Like these are all these fundraising ways that we are able to raise money for mental health causes and organizations that I think are like the hands and feet out there, like the therapists out there that are doing the work, that are helping people and making a difference in that field. So, we raise the awareness, we raise the money, we provide a platform um, to be able to support the people out there who are doing what my therapist is doing and what your therapist is doing. And sometimes we get super, like once in a while, I'll have someone come to me and share like something really personal with them that they're going through, and how like money they're not necessarily asking me to benefit them through these nights. They just share their story, and then I choose to benefit them. So we benefited this artist duo back in November. One of them has like a lot of medical issues, and her medical bills are like insane. So we chose to benefit her at an event. And me, like when you're benefiting someone by helping them pay their medical bills, you are absolutely helping their mental health. Um, Mia Cirillo was a victim of one of the shootings back in 2022. And she survived the shooting, but she had like a lot of injuries. Like she's a kid. And her family said that they needed support with her medical bills and therapy. She was going to need therapy. So we ended up supporting them at one of our events, donating to their GoFundMe that they had set up. So like there's opportunities for us to donate on like a big level to like these bigger organizations, on more of like a community level to like therapy and counseling centers in our community, and then on a really personal level when somebody in our community is in need. And to me, that's just being Christ-like. So yeah.
Well, that's really awesome. And you know, you're a survivor, man, and I'm glad that that like I said, that you're turning the negatives into a positive and that you're helping people. It's really awesome. And you know, I just think it's cool that that you're using your platform to connect with people in a positive way, that you pursue something that you loved. Um there's a really cool quote from Denzel. I shouldn't really say quote, it's like a cool it's a cool clip that you can find on YouTube. Um, if I can find it, I'll link it in the description when this podcast comes out, just because I think it ties into your story too. But it's like, especially since you're a spiritual person, and your faith is really important to you. But he's basically talking to this group of kids, and he's saying the things that you didn't ask for, that you're naturally drawn to, those are proof positive from God that that's what you're supposed to go for. So whether it's music, whether it's art, whatever gift that is, that's there, and you persevered through that first performance in middle school, uh, which I did a couple plays when I was younger just because it was funny to like do stuff in front of my class, and then I was like terrified when all the parents would show up. So I had a very short-lived and terrible career in theater, Zhaklina, but to go through everything, just to bring a little levity to it, to what we're talking about. But I think it's cool that you've persevered and that you're here. I really appreciate the time. And for people who aren't aware of what you're doing, I'll put the links in the podcast description, but let them know where they can find you and what you're doing with Mental Health Songwriter Nights and your music.
Yeah. So both my artist information and my mental health songwriter information, songwriter nights information, are on Instagram as well as Facebook. My artist handle is I am Zhaklina. So that's spelled IAMZHAKLINA. And then my mental health songwriter nights handle is Mental Health Songwriter Nights. That's it. Um, so yeah, and as far as like if you're interested, if you're an artist listening to this, or somebody who would like to be a part of my mental health songwriter nights events in some way, feel free to reach out to me. I do have a website, www.zhaklina.com, where you can find information on my music as well as my events. You can reach out to me through email, zhaklina.booking@gmail.com, for anything you'd like to connect with me on. And you can find all my music on all music platforms under my artist name, Zhaklina, ZHAKLINA.
Alrighty, dighty, there you have it. That was my conversation with Zhaklina Spencer. Make sure you go follow her on Instagram at I am Zhaklina, and that is spelled ZHAKLINA. And also go follow at Mental Health Songwriter Nights on Instagram as well. The links to all of her stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So just scroll down to the bottom of that podcast description, hit those links, and go follow and support Zhaklina and everything they're doing over there for Mental Health Songwriter Nights. I want to say the next one is going to be Valentine's Day 2024, if my memory serves me right. But either way, in any instance, go follow those links and support what she's doing. It's really awesome, man. Like I couldn't think of a better episode to close out the end of this year, truly, than to have somebody on here who is using her voice for positive change and to help spread awareness and support mental health. It's as you guys heard her personal story as to why she's doing all of this. I just think it's a great example of the meaning of this podcast. March forth, persevere, move forward. We all go through varying degrees of darkness in our lives, and it always really inspires me when I see people like Zhaklina who are able to take the difficulties and the hardships that they've gone through and translate it and channel it into something positive. So I just want to say thank you once again, Zhaklina, for taking the time to come on the podcast and share your story with myself and the listeners. I know it's not easy going to those places, but at the same time, it's important to talk about these subjects and spread awareness. And I think what you and Bobby are doing, and everybody who's involved with Mental Health Songwriter Nights in Nashville, man, I just think it's really awesome. So thank you so much. Yeah, man, please go support her, y'all. She's doing great work, and I'm really excited for what they have in store for 2024. Also, she just announced on her Instagram that she's got a new single coming out in 2024. It's going to be January 12th, if my memory serves me right on that as well. And before 2024 gets here, Jacqueline's got a show on December 30th at the Cobra in Nashville. So again, check out the links to what I shared in the podcast description. You'll have all that information. But it's just cool when you come across other good people who are trying to use their platforms for positivity and for change, man. Not to sound self-righteous, but you know, March 4th, that's exactly what this podcast is about. It's about perseverance, it's about moving forward. As you guys know, I've spoken a lot about mental health on this show, not just my own struggles and issues with anxiety and obsessive compulsive tendencies and stuff, but also guests on the show and what they've gone through. And I don't do it in an exploitative way. This isn't stuff that's done from that place at all. It's really done out of wanting to bring awareness to the fact that we all have the ability to persevere, to move forward, to march forth, and we all go through darkness to get to the light, man, and to let our light shine. And everybody goes through varying degrees of dark times in their lives, but talking about those things and sharing how you're getting through it and how you're trying to translate it into something positive, as Jacqueline has done with her time and her voice and her talent. It's a beautiful thing at the end of the day to be able to do that. So I feel very fortunate to have this platform and to see it continuing to grow. It's very humbling. So thank you to all of you who take the time to listen, like, and subscribe and share it. It truly means the world, and it wouldn't be possible without great guests like Shaklina and great listeners like all of you. So as I close out 2023, I really just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to each and every one of you. I love you all, and I can't wait for what 2024 has in store. I hope you're excited for the new year as well. And if you're out there, man, and you're struggling, just know that you are loved, you're worthy, you're worth it, and there's a lot of people rooting for you who care about you. And please don't shy away from speaking about how you feel. I know it takes time to open up and to trust other people, but we all have people in our lives who want to see us shine and want to see us glow and see us grow and be the best version of ourselves. So as somebody who's had a tough few years on an emotional level, I had some dark days, man, and there were people there are people in my life who have been there for me through it all, and they know who they are and how much I love them, and I know how much they love me. So if you're struggling, just don't quit, man. You have a light, you're here for a purpose, and there are a lot of people who want to help you discover it, and that will make you feel stronger than you maybe feel right now, man. So please just please just stay tough and don't be afraid to speak up and share what's going on, man, because we're here for love and support. So that's going to be a wrap, man. The last episode of 2023. Once again, Thank you to Zhaklina at I am Zhaklina on Instagram, at Mental Health Songwriter Nights on Instagram. She's got a show 12:30 at the Cobra in Nashville. New single coming January 12th. More stuff to come with Mental Health Songwriter Nights. So stay tuned for all of that. And once again, you can follow me at March 4th Pod on YouTube and Instagram. My website is march4th.podbean.com. And all those links are in the podcast description as well. But that's a wrap on the show for 2023. I can't believe it. We've got a new year coming, and I'm just really excited, man. I love you all. Keep the faith and be kind to one another. I hope that everybody has a very, very happy new year. Courtesy of Zhaklina, here is her song, You Can't Have My Mind. Peace.
It's cold as I wrap myself with my mind. Memories send their flashbacks down my spine. You say you don't remember it, but I live with it. You sold your story for gold, but you won't get mine. You can't